New York Times reports that 30% of Americans claim no religion. No wonder we see confusion about family and gender. Is it a shock that cartel gangs and Antifa bring chaos to our streets? Are you really surprised by rising anti-Semitism on college campuses? Over 25% of American kids grow up without a father. Broken homes break hearts, and they erode faith. Too many Americans seek love in all the wrong places, turning away from God. The trouble is, God respects our choices. When a society pushes him out, he gladly takes a step back. So how do we find our way back? Our next guest has some of those answers. Chad Robichaux is a Marine Force Recon veteran and founder of the Mighty Oaks Foundation. He's turned his own PTSD struggles into a mission, helping over 500,000 troops. And on top of that, he's evacuated over 17,000 from war zones. More than anything, though, Chad is simply an American badass. Chad Robichaux, welcome to the Terry Schilling Show.
Thanks so much for having me on, especially in short notice. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for doing that. Listen, Chad, I want to get into this. Tell us a little bit more about you, your background, and how you ended up making such an impact on our country and turning this country around.
Yeah, a long history of military in my family, all the way from World War I, World War II, Korea. My father was the first Marine in our family. He served as an infantryman in Vietnam, and myself as a Force Recon Marine. Both my sons are Marines. In fact, one of my sons and I both served in Afghanistan in the same war, which is not very common and pretty wild. But I joined the military at a young age of 17 years old for a brand new chance at life because I grew up in a very dysfunctional childhood and needed that fresh start of my own. And I went in the Marine Corps with the goals of being in special operations. I wanted to be a reconnaissance Marine, and very fortunate to make it at a young age and to becoming a recon Marine, going into Force Recon, doing my time there, and later getting a chance to try out for a DoD contract on a JSOC task force, Joint Special Operations Command. And for those in the audience that doesn't know, JSOC is where we house our Tier 1 special mission units, Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, Task Force Orange. And so I got to go represent the Marine Corps and work in that capacity. I did 8 deployments to Afghanistan there as an advanced force operator, doing clandestine logistics, working most times as a singleton operator with my teammate and interpreter, Aziz. And it was an incredible time, a hard time. Over those 8 deployments, I lost 15 friends and had a lot of really bad things happen during that time. I dealt with a compromise on our operation. I was abducted by a foreign intelligence agency in a neighboring country to Afghanistan. I'm being vague because the Pentagon redacted it in my book, Saving Aziz. If you read Saving Aziz, the Pentagon did the black bar redactions, but it's pretty easy to do the math of which country I was in and which agency abducted me, and all those bad things that happened. It put a lot of stress on me, and eventually I came home. I was diagnosed with severe chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, and dealt with a lot of things that include severe panic attacks, anxiety, depression, and a very real battle with taking my own life. And in 2010, I had a suicide attempt, and my family intervened. My wife intervened in that moment of being in an attempt, and asked me a really challenging question. She asked me how I could do everything that she saw me do in the Marine Corps and special operations, going to Afghanistan. My other part of my life I didn't talk about, being a professional athlete. She saw me have discipline to do all these things in my life. She's like, how could you do all of those things, and when it comes to our family, you'll quit? Oh. And for me, there's no more soul challenging question or soul cutting question to be called a quitter. And she was absolutely right. I've been successful in a lot of professional things, but when it came to the most important things in life, I'd given up, including my own will to live. And I'm a pretty radical decision maker, and in that moment, I made a decision to get back in the fight. And of all the things I did to get well, the most profound thing was the restoration of my faith and surrendering my life to Jesus, becoming a Christian, and surrounding myself with the right people that brought accountability in my life, that brought discipleship into my life, and really led me on a path to understand who it was God created me to be, and how I could align my life outside of my own desires, but to the purpose in which I was created to live. And that manifested for me in a deep burden I got put on my heart to pay the lessons I found forward to other veterans that were struggling with the same things. And if your audience doesn't know, I'm sure they do. I'm not the only veteran that ran into that same hopeless thought that says, maybe my family would be sad without me, but they'd be better off in making the decision to take my life. Like a lot of other people have that same hopeless thought in the veteran community, outside of the veteran community. So suicide is is at an all-time high in our country, and within the veteran community, they say 17 a day, 22 a day, 40 a day. I don't know what the real number is, and I work in this space because there's so many lies in the reporting. One a day is too many.
Right.
But God just really burdened my heart to do something about it, and I felt like if I was dying for cancer and somebody gave me the cure, when this guy Steve Toth, my mentor, gave me the truth about who Jesus was and what my life was meant to be, I felt like there was a cure, and I had to share it.
Yes.
And so since then, that's been 15 years now. That manifested in founding Mighty Oaks Foundation. Like you said in the introduction, we've been able to serve over 500,000 warriors through Mighty Oaks. We do about $8 million a year in programming for free on behalf of a grateful nation that supports Mighty Oaks. And we serve veterans, first responders, active duty service members, all their spouses. Everything we do is free. We do resiliency programs, recovery programs, and we do international programs. And I'm in D.C. Advocating on behalf of faith-based programs, and have advised, from the President Trump to the VA to testify before Congress and Senate. And all those things have just really given me an amazing platform that's allowed me to broadcast this message in the veteran community and far beyond outside, with books and my own podcast. And I do a lot of speaking, and I'm just really on a mission to share the truth that I discovered in my own journey, and share it with as many people as I can.
It's amazing. I mean, because you said it. I mean, your wife put it best, right? Like, not even the quitter part, right? Like that is, but you're an accomplished man. You had done incredible things that, like, less than 0.01% of all human beings ever have done and accomplished, but it still wasn't enough. And it's like, one, you obviously have an amazing wife and an amazing family that was motivational enough for you to rise up and achieve, overcome all this stuff. But it was that faith in God. So it's like, I always bring this stuff right back to those two key things, which are faith and family. And those are really the things that have driven this country.
Yeah, it is. I speak primarily, the topic I speak most on is the topic of resiliency. In fact, my shirt probably says "Live Resilient." My podcast is a resilience show. And resiliency is the theme that I kind of have lived by, because in the military they teach this thing called the 4 pillars of resiliency: mind, body, spirit, and social. And that to the military is the 4 foundational pillars to make a warrior resilient to go to war and do the bid of our nation, to protect our nation and to defend people around the world who can't defend themselves. That's the criteria, right? Are they mentally tough enough? They're physically tough enough? They're socially with the right people? Do they have a strong spiritual foundation? But in honesty and truth, if we really are honest, and I love our military, for instance, Pete Hegseth, I think they're doing a great job. But if we're really honest, the military does a really good job at 2 of them and a terrible job at the other 2. They do a great job of motivating our young men and women, giving them the right perspectives, the right attitude. They feel like they're invincible, like superheroes, and they should. They physically prepare them. But socially, it's who they work with. But the community, the culture of the military has been far corrupted. And spiritually, they haven't had the courage to define what a true spiritual foundation is. And for me, those are you mentioned those 2 things: faith and family, social and spiritual. Without those, to me, that's way more important than physical. And because one day our bodies are going to give out and die, and whether we get hurt or old, and our mind's not always going to be. There's just days you wake up and your mind's not there. But if you have faith and family, those are the 2 most important pillars of resiliency. And I try to preach those every day.
Well, I first came across these attacks on faith in the military a few years ago. I had a friend who had a whole foundation that its main job and goal was to get as many Bibles in the hands of our servicemen and women as possible. And he had all these studies showing that, the number one driver in recovery from PTSD and all the afflictions that our brave men and women suffer from was a return to faith. And he was so upset because the Obama administration at the time was working to get rid of a lot of the pillars of faith in the military. They were getting rid of ministers on bases. They were eliminating a lot of the scripture that was there in the Bibles. There was really a war on faith in the military. And I think, I'll assert something and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's partly what has replaced the faith in our military is all this wokeness that we're seeing everywhere.
You're absolutely right. So since 1775, every U.S. service member that has put on a uniform was given a Bible, Holy Bible, Christian Holy Bible. In fact, it predated 1775 that our troops were getting, during the foundation and building of America. Before 1775 they were getting. But since 1775 officially, every service member received a Bible during the initial training until 2009 when President Obama, by executive order, put it into it. In addition to that, he signed an executive order to get rid of the Opportunity and Faith initiative that President Bush put in 2001. And that time, when he did that, the suicide rate was 16 a day. In a 2-year period of removing God from the military, we've seen it go from 16 a day to 22 a day. Now, don't think that's a six number increase. That's per day. That's per day, right? 6 more a day since you removed God out of that. And so when I became aware of this, I was like, there's the problem, right? If you want to have a cause behind something, you have to find the problem first. I'm like, there's the problem. We intentionally removed God out of the military, put a universalist secular chaplaincy, handcuffed the Christian chaplains, no more Bibles, no more Opportunity and Faith initiatives for our veterans. And so I took that as a mission, and I got a seat in 2016 when candidate Trump was at a town hall. I was one of 6 veterans that could ask him a question. I could ask him anything I wanted. And so what I asked him was this: if you become president of the United States, will you overturn these executive orders and bring the Faith and Opportunity Initiative back to our veteran community? And he said yes. And then he kept talking. He said a bunch of other stuff that the media went crazy with, because that's what President Trump does and the media does. And that gave me an opportunity to go and Bill O'Reilly and defend him, and got me connected with President Trump's administration. And I became the chairman of the White House's Faith-Based Coalition for Veteran Affairs to implement this stuff. And in 2018, President Trump signed an executive order to implement that and allow faith communities to come back into VA and DOD. And that battle has continued on. And that's one of the reasons I campaigned for Pete Hegseth to be Secretary of Defense. Not because he had a star on his collar or because he was an admiral or general, but because he's seen this as a problem. The biggest threat to national security is the morale and welfare, recruitability, and retention of our troops. And that falls into the readiness of our troops. And you take spirituality out of it, they don't have the readiness, the resiliency, or the ability to recover. And that's what ties to their retention. And so Pete Hegseth got this, and that's why I campaigned so hard for him, because underneath all the stuff that I just said comes the one moment when President Obama removed Bibles and faith from our United States military. We've been on a downward spiral since.
Well, it's obvious that there's a real nefarious and evil agenda here. It's so obvious. Look, I've never had the privilege of serving, but I have friends who have. I have family members who have. And I've read a lot of books and testimonies from people that have served. And I mean, God bless you, Chad, because you guys have seen some of the most horrific things that I actually don't think any human being was meant to see. And the idea that you would take away these opportunities for our servicemen and women who have seen the most horrific things ever, their ability to reach out to God, the one guy that can give them true consolation, the one guy that's bigger than all of us, that can give us forgiveness and consolation and be there for us. They robbed it, and they masquerade. The thing that's so enraging to me is that they masquerade as just liberal. Oh, we just want to increase more, everyone's ability to practice. No, you just want to attack Christianity. You just want to attack Christians. Your real enemy, you don't care about these other religions because they aren't a threat to your regime. You want to eliminate the Christians in the military. And Chad, I'll tell you, I don't want a military without Christians in it. I mean, I want the military to be full of Christians, because those are the only people that I really trust with a gun to protect our country and to not become tyrants.
Well, America, make no mistake, people can love or hate America. America is the world superpower. We're the most dominant force on the planet, with the most dominant and lethal military organization in the history of mankind. And that with a godlessness is something that I don't want. I love America, but I don't want the most lethal military force in history not to have morality and a authority under the authority of God. It's necessary for us to have that, not only as a nation, but as a responsible global superpower. You look at somebody small like North Korea, who's godless, in the threat they are. Imagine North Korea with what we have without the moral guidance of Almighty God. And these issues that you're talking about with veterans not having access to spiritual healing is a really big issue. And I've testified over a dozen times before Congress on this. And the last time I testified before Congress, your credit to Congressman Derek Van Orden, Morgan Luttrell, several others, Eli Crane, Corey, all those guys, they've done a great job of pushing this forward, because the VA right now, and most Americans would cringe if they knew this, in order for a VA to receive any mental health care, it has to be approved by the FDA. So I explained that. The FDA is one organization, the VA is another. In order for the VA to approve any mental health care, it has to be approved by the FDA. That's a conflict of interest with the big pharmaceutical industry. That's saying the only care that a veteran can get for mental health care is pharmaceutical care. I'm not against medication. I just believe if medication is the only part of your plan, it's a bad plan. And it should, our veterans, if anyone else, should have options for faith-based care. Me personally, and many my brothers and sisters in the veteran community feel the same way, that PTSD, trauma, combat trauma, is a spiritual wound, and a spiritual wound requires a spiritual solution, and there is no spiritual solution absent of a relationship with Jesus. And if it doesn't have to be the mandated only thing that they can offer, but it should be an option for our veterans. And the FDA, who has ties to the big pharmaceutical industries, the FDA should not be able to blockade that from our veterans. And America, and every American should be throwing a fit and an uproar to know that that's actually going on right now. And it's people like, President Trump that's fighting for it and allowing me to be part of things like that to fight for that. And I've said exactly what I just said right in Capitol Hill, testifying before Congress, like, you cannot do this. You cannot heal. I mean, why? The VA, by the way, I'll give you some things that they're good at. Burns, right? Burn clinics. The guy gets burned, they're going to take care of them. They lose limbs, they're going to take care of them. They have the best burn clinics, the best prosthetic clinics, the best doctors for traumatic brain injuries. They have all these things that they're really, really good at. And so since they're so good at these things, then why do they still have a 70% disapproval rate? Mm-hmm. It's because they will not address the real need for mental health care. And that's a spiritual wound. And again, a spiritual wound needs a spiritual solution. And there's no pill, by the way, that's going to fix that.
No, there's not. And obviously, this is a real sign of just how deep the corruption is in DC, that Big Pharma was obviously able to work out some type of loophole that forced them to be able to help sell more of their pills. It's absolutely disgusting. But I'm glad that you're bringing more awareness, and I'm definitely going to start speaking out a lot more about that. There are all these little gimmicks that these guys do to help bolster their industries, and it's because they're trillion-dollar industries, right? They're incredibly powerful. They have people. There shouldn't be anyone from Big Pharma at the FDA. The point of the FDA is to hold industries like Big Pharma and Big Food accountable. The idea that they have representatives on these boards and get to change the policies, they're rigging the game, and we're all getting hurt. And obviously, this is having a horrible impact on the people that we should be protecting the most, which are the guys putting their lives on the line.
Yeah, they're getting a whole demographic of people, within the VA. They got a captured audience, a captured clientele, and they're paying government prices with our taxpayer dollars. Meanwhile, our veterans are paying a price for it with their lives through suicide and broken families and lost sense of purpose, and it's horrible. It's horrible, and it needs to be exposed. The light needs to be shed on it.
Well, I wanted to shift to a different topic. You, when I was reading up about you, you helped get 17,000 people out of Afghanistan. Can we put up image A and B, please? Tell me about this. I mean, how what happened? Just give us a little bit more of the story. And I'm sure you've written about this in your book. And I want you to plug that book because I want as many people to read about your story as possible. But tell us a little bit more about this story and how that all came to be.
Yeah, we wrote a book about it. It's a bestseller called Saving Aziz, and it's being made in a motion picture film, by the way. So, which is really an honor. But the story is it wasn't about going to get 17,000 people from Afghanistan. The story was my friend Aziz, who did 8 deployments with me and saved my life multiple times in kinetic combat, and probably saved my life every day. Like, don't walk there, don't eat that, don't talk to that person. If you talk right now, they're gonna kill us. I worked in a singleton capacity, so I didn't go on base and live on base. I lived in Aziz's home. His wife Hatra made me my first warm meal out of coming weeks or months in the mountains, and I held his kids Mashud and Mashuda when they were born. I held them as babies. So he's family to me. So when President Biden announced in April of 2021 that we're going to do a full and complete withdrawal of Afghanistan, at that time, Aziz had already been in the SIV process for 6 years. It's supposed to take 9 months for someone that fulfilled their contract. We had a very broken immigration system that lied and took advantage of our interpreters that served with us for 20 years in combat. Aziz served for 15 years in Tier 1 JSOC units and never got a special immigrant visa. So knowing who he was, what he did, knowing from some of the compromises we had in our operation that what bad guys knew who he was, like he would have certainly been killed, and his wife and 6 kids would have been killed, in addition to probably his daughters becoming sexually enslaved. And I have a life debt to Aziz. And I mean, he's my friend. There's few people I'd probably slide all the chips in on, cash in, and he's one of them. And there was no question at all, like what I was gonna do. Like I had to go get Aziz and his wife and 6 kids out. In the middle of dealing with that, I'm dealing with trying to be a spokesman for the Afghanistan withdrawal, realizing I had no power at all. The Afghanistan withdrawal, I mean, people use the word debacle and say, President Biden made some bad choices. This was deliberate. This was not, the American people were grossly lied to, including by every major media outlet. I'm a contributor for Fox News, and I'll say the lies were there too, everywhere across the board. And we all believed it. Even conservatives believed it. Like, we're in this 20-year war, this endless war. It has to end. We can't be in this endless war forever. American sons and daughters are dying. Like, however you want to spin it, they still say, we had to leave Afghanistan, but we could have left in a better way. No, we should never have left Afghanistan, because America's troops on the ground doesn't create wars, it prevents wars. We still have, by the way, to remind everybody, and people don't think I'm crazy for saying this, we still have 80,000 troops in Japan since World War II. We still have 40,000 troops in Germany since World War II. We still have 20,000 troops in South Korea that every day keeps the North Koreans from coming over the 30th parallel and invading South Korea. American troops on the ground around the world in these contingencies don't create wars, they prevent wars. We had 2,000 troops in Afghanistan. They were working with an international community to support and support and advise the Afghan National Army and Afghan National Police to prevent the Taliban from coming outside of Afghanistan, and it was working. The entire international community was working. Now, what I believe President Trump should have done would call the end to the war and remained a support and advisory role. That would have been a great win for him, but he didn't. But President Biden could have did that too. Call it into the war, but we don't give up Bagram Air Force Base, the most strategic place in the globe between Iraq, Iran, Russia, and China, unless there was a motivation to do it. And the only people that gained anything were not the Afghan people. It was China, Russia, and Iran. They're the only, in Pakistan, ISI. They're the only people that had anything to gain. And it was not the world's safety, in the best interest of the world's safety. At that time, there were 2 Al-Qaeda training camps. Now there's between 50 and 60 Al-Qaeda training camps there. And all that, this becomes a terrorist hotbed right now. We're still giving, by the way, I think Trump has cut it off by now. It should have enacted to cut it off by now. But up until Trump came in office and until like the last 100 days, we're giving $80 million a week to the Taliban, including everyone that was receiving the money was all on terrorist watch lists, including 4 that was on the top 10 terrorist watch lists with the FBI that we're giving this money to. And so I went on a tangent there, but I'm telling you, like, we did not have to leave Afghanistan. It was a complete atrocity that we did. I couldn't stop that, but the one thing I could do was go get my friend. And so I put a team together to get Aziz, his wife, and 6 kids of about 12 former special operations veterans. We started putting our plan together. And as we were doing that, one of my friends picked up his phone and he said, hey, there was this orphanage that was abandoned and there's 3,000 kids there. It's great that we could go get Aziz, but we need to get these kids too. And I think in that moment we reshifted and said, we looked around the room. That's like Navy SEALs, Force Recon Marines, Delta Force, SEAL Team 6. That's like some CIA ground branch guy. We had some really good experience there. And like, we have the ability to do something big here. I don't know what, but let's lean forward and help as many Americans, interpreters, women, children that we can help. And honestly, we've gotten a lot of credit for what we've done. I mean, the book and awards and stuff like that. I know we're nominated for the Congressional Gold Medal, like all this stuff. But the truth is, all we did was lean forward. And God, I have to say this, like God orchestrated an absolute miracle, because I'm not capable enough, smart enough, connected enough to pull off the miracle that not only allow us to rescue Aziz, his wife and 6 kids, but the 17,000 people. And it was, every step along the way, Terry, it was an impossibility.
Yeah.
Every step from getting access and placement to be able to go on the HKIA, impossible. We get permission from the Joint Chiefs to be able to take people without visas out of Afghanistan to go to Abu Dhabi for vetting. An impossibility. We got permission from the UAE to do it. We got support from the UAE to bring them there, to get C-17 planes from there. Now we have to raise millions of dollars to fund this. Within 3 days, I get access through Glenn Beck and Mercury One Charity, $46 million. Like, all this happened, like every one of those was an impossibility, and God just kept bringing miracles.
Yeah, it sounds like God was involved
to rescue these people. It's the whole thing. We could spend hours talking about it. It was absolutely incredible, and to get those people out and be part of it. And then at the very end, myself and Dennis Price went into Tajikistan, and for 10 days we did about 97 miles of route reconnaissance on the Panjshir River, and we were swimming in Afghanistan every night across the Panjshir River to build routes out for the women and children of the resistance fighters to get them out.
Well, so you wrote a bestseller, obviously, but you have a new book that's just come out, MHC, please. So this book is fiction.
Yes.
What made you want to write, you switch from nonfiction to fiction? Like, what's the story about, and where can people find it?
I'm tired of going around the world with great nonfiction stories. I'm like, I don't want to create any more content. I spent the last few years in Ukraine doing rescues in Ukraine, and we did my book, Mission Without Borders, was about me and my son in Ukraine and the amazing team members we had there. Ben Hall, the rescue of Ben Hall, that we rescued Ben Hall out of Ukraine. But like, I was like, I don't want another real life story I have to write about, so I got to do something fiction. No, there was that, and in the fact that I knew when my book Saving Aziz went to the Pentagon, I would never be able to tell my full story. So I want to fictionalize a little bit of some parallels of my career in the military and some of the things I did. And so I wrote it in a fiction format. This is book 1 of 3, so it's a 3-book series. And this is book 1. It's called Silent Horizons, and it's really a Force Recon Marine that goes to Naval Special Warfare Development Group, or SEAL Team 6. Stays on as a contractor at JSOC doing AFO work, clandestine logistics work, and dealing with the Ukraine-Russian arms trade and a lot of corruption in it. It was really fun to write. Even though it's fiction, I really have always enjoyed historical fiction and making sure the accuracy is there. So if I say you're in this street in Iran and there's a coffee shop there, it's really there. Yes. When we go through military details, the TTPs, the techniques, tactics and procedures, the SOPs, like all that stuff's like 1,000% dialed in. So you're reading it, even though it's fiction, you were dealing with 1,000% accuracy. We've had lots of cross checks on it. Jack Stewart, who wrote this with me, he was a Top Gun, not only Top Gun pilot, but adversary instructor. He did his ground time with Delta Force and SEAL Team 6. And I had my buddies from Ground Branch and the CIA and Delta Force, SEAL Team 6 read it. So we got a lot of accuracy in here. It's a lot of fun. By the way, on audiobook, we had Ray Porter read it. He's the best audiobook reader. He does all Jack Carr stuff. I think, we got a forward by Jack Carr as well, who's the best in this genre.
Well, I'm not just telling you this. I'm going to go buy the book tonight, and my wife and I will read it together. We like to read books together, something that we share a joy in, and I can't wait to read it. One thing I wanted to ask you, though, about was, Trump has made a big deal about ridding the wokeness out of the military, and, we're actually, obviously, I think, making a lot of progress. We put up a MHD, please. So we've got this, decent Supreme Court ruling where Trump's banning transgender troops from the military. I mean, I'm just going to be real. I'm always real with people. I can't imagine signing up to serve my country, put my life on the line, and then having to deal with this type of distraction. I mean, part of, my uncle was in Iraq. He's, joined the military like right out of high school. And it was obvious, like, once you join, you're part of something bigger than yourselves. And I think at the heart of this whole transgender industry and the transgender ideology is that you're bigger than everyone else. I mean, you're literally trying to change the definition of sex and gender. I don't want to get on a transgender rant, but what do you think still needs to be done in the military? Are you happy with the progress President Trump is making, or do you think the courts are holding things up too much?
Well, I mean, Look, President Trump made a really strategic. I know I already went on about Pete Hegseth, but that was a really bold decision because I mean, on paper, Pete Hegseth did not qualify to be the SecDef. I mean, you're talking. I mean, on paper, right? He just has to be a citizen, but it's always been a general, an admiral, somebody tremendous. Pete Hegseth led at a company level. He didn't have the pedigree. I mean, he's Harvard and I think Princeton educated, but he's a statesman for sure. But he didn't have the pedigree. But what Trump did was something that was essential. He had to bring someone outside the institution to bring the change. It was imperative that someone came from outside the institution, because if you bring someone from inside the institution, they have been part of it. They have been part of putting the transgender ideology to wokeness. If they spoke against it, they were put out. You had to bring someone from outside or they would have had to eat crow, right? And so Pete Hegseth was the right man for the job. His book he wrote was about this stuff. And so he has spent a lot of years like really focusing on stuff. And he and I have kind of said the same speaking points on this topic. The biggest threat to our national security, and I think I said it earlier, is our morale, recruitment, and retention. Why did we start with morale, recruitment, and retention? Because the military lost its way. America's sons and daughters don't want daughters, and I'll be a little bit of toxic masculine here and say mainly America's sons, who are going to be war fighters, do not want to join the military to see this woke just garbage. I mean, look, I knew lots of people from special operations community. I spent my whole career there, and there's legacy guys. Most of the guys in special operations community, their sons go in a special operations community. They were there. They were discouraging their kids from joining because of the things that have changed. I mean, imagine your whole life running, swimming. I started when I was 13 years old preparing for that job. I knew when I was probably 5, like a kid.
Yes.
But my whole life I trained. These kids, they train their whole life to go become a Navy SEAL or Recon Marine, or a Green Beret, or be in Marine Corps Infantry. There was a transgender Navy SEAL chief, a dude who in a skirt, and he was part of the reception at Bud's. Could you imagine training your whole life to be a Navy SEAL and you show up and there's some dude there in a skirt?
It's demoralizing. It's devastating.
That would just shatter now you're about to do the hardest thing in your life, and your dreams have already been shattered. How do you recruit these people? How do you retain them? And then if they join for something to do 4 years of gender training and wokeness, all this wokeness stuff, and how to be gender sensitive and then when the 4 year comes around, they're like, man, I'm out. And the 4 years when we invest in these people, the second round, the re-enlistment is what we want. We want these guys to be seasoned. The military has been purged of war fighters. All these war fighters from 20 years of war, most of them have gotten out. And it's terrible. So morale, recruitment, retention were important. I mean, there is no, and Pete Hegseth continues to beat this drum, and I can't agree with him more. The military has one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to destroy our adversaries. The lethality of our military is more important than anything else. And anything that doesn't fit into the priority of the lethality of the United States military has no purpose there. This isn't some normal job that everybody gets a participation trophy.
Right.
To join. Like, you have to qualify. If I'm missing a pinky, they're not going to let me in the military. If I have flat feet, they're not going to let me in the military. In a rational and logical world, if I have gender dysphoria, they're not going to let me in the military.
Well, here, let me pull up something real quick. So Hegseth's been great on this, and actually in Trump's first term, can we pull up image E, please? So we did a documentary called The Culture War. And, Hegseth's been fantastic. He's basically doing what Trump did in the first term. But, in the first term, Trump had, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. But was it Milley? No, he had Milley there, obviously. Mad Dog Mattis, who was undercutting him, trying to get transgender surgeries funded in the military. So we do this documentary. We sit down with President Trump last summer, and we asked him, why did you ban transgender surgeries in the military? And he had a better answer than I could have come up with, and I work on this issue. And he said, listen, I talked to many of the generals. I looked at the military guidelines, and it was very simple. You can't be on drugs. You can't be, diabetic and on insulin and in the military. And these people, they're on lots of drugs, bottles of drugs. And they get the surgeries, and they cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then they just leave. This is a total distraction.
I mean, one of the biggest things in the military that people don't realize is not just your training. You have to be deployable.
Yes.
You have to your teeth. Like, why do you have to go to for the dentist? You have your teeth. You have to be deployable. Your health. You have to be deployable. If you're getting prepared for transition surgery, post transition surgery, you're not deployable. And so, what use are you to the military? Why are you even there? You're not deployable at all. And I mean, I can't be on testosterone, like be injecting testosterone as a man, but you can because you're a woman that wants to be a man.
But why would you want people on estrogen in the military? Why would you want men who are on estrogen in the military? This is the real question I want to ask you. Why are they pushing it? I mean, my answer is I think they want to destroy it. These are things you would only do in a military if you wanted to destroy the military and ultimately destroy the country.
Here's the even more important question, Terry, that I have asked many times, and I've not been able to find the answer to is who is pushing it? Who's the they? When you say they are destroying it, who's the they? No one can put a finger on who it is and where it comes from with this issue. Who is pushing this? Why is this such a big deal? It comes from somewhere, but no one will actually take the responsibility of saying, "Yeah, we're pushing it, and this is why." I mean, it's so bad. It's so systemic. I've went to different places and spoken. You have men with long hair and breast augmentation leading our sons in special operations units.
Humiliating.
Yeah,
Humiliating.
I mean it's not the focus of a military. Again, hey, our focus is lethality. We need to be the most ferocious, feared fighting force on the planet. That way, our national security is intact. No one will mess with us because they fear us, and they should. And when we go around the world to defend people that can't defend themselves, we have the ability to do it rapidly, quickly, and come back home.
One exercise that my wife and I like to do is take like a 30,000-foot view of America, like just historically speaking. Look at America the way we look at ancient Rome and the decisions that we're making today. And you just asked a very important question, which is who is behind this? And if you take that 30,000-foot view of America, well, it's obviously someone's embedded, or a group of people have embedded themselves in our military from a foreign adversary, and they're trying to weaken it. It's probably most likely some foreign country or foreign interest that's trying to take down America and overpower it, so that we can't fight them and have a ready fighting force if it comes to a conflict like that.
Well, I mean, if you look at the global agenda, and as a Christian, as a believer, I know that I read about a lot of ancient. The two things I read a lot about is like I read a lot of ancient times and read a lot of in-world times, and I believe the agenda of the spiritual battle that's going on is to bring a universal approach to a one world government. And you see, now it's out in the open. Like people are talking about one world governments and us all coming together in a world without borders and one currency and all these things that globalists are talking about. Well, in order to have globalism, America has to fall. You can't have globalism in America because America is the glue that holds the world together. And so you have to take America out. In order to take America out, you have to destroy the military. You have to destroy the men in America. You have to destroy masculinity. You have to destroy families. And how do you do that? Through implanting communism, socialism in our country. And so all this stuff you see, is rooted into that. Like, if you start reading, Marxist Manifesto and all the tactics are very clear, and you could see them playing out in our country right now. And so
Well, I will say not all hope is lost. Can we pull up image F, please? So we're starting to see a surge in recruitment after obviously years of devastation with our recruitment. I mean, it's starting to come back. What do you think's driving this, Chad? Do you think this is the Trump effect?
Oh yeah, he's commander in chief. I mean, look, no one wants to serve. You won't go work for a company that has a bad CEO, a bad leader. I mean, you might stay there, you might get hired there, but you're going to leave. In the military, like no one's going to join the military if you have a commander in chief that you don't believe in. The parents aren't going to let their sons and daughters join the military or encourage them to join the military if they have that commander in chief that's going to put them in a endless stupid war for nothing. President Trump has gained the confidence of young men and women and parents to say, we have a commander in chief that's not going to put you in a pointless, endless war. And if you do have to go to war, guess what? You're going to go there with a mission. You're going to kick ass and win, and then you're going to come home.
Yes.
And he put a Secretary of Defense in place that believes that as well, and has communicated that clearly to the American public. And this is the result. What you're showing right here. This is the result. The result of lack of confidence in America with putting their sons and daughters in the military. Clear result. Lowest numbers since Vietnam in recruiting, down 35%. Lowest numbers in retention since Vietnam. Now you see it surging up because America has confidence in the commander-in-chief.
All we needed was a new president and a Department of Defense chief that supported him. Chad, where can people find you, learn more about you? I definitely want to keep in touch, brother, and have you back on, especially when those other books come out. But where can people find you and stay engaged with you and help throw you some support?
Well, since I'm doing all kind of different things, I just revamped my website, chadrobichaux.com. It's a good landing page for everything. My speaking, my books, the nonprofits that I'm part of, and both Mighty Oaks Foundation, taking care of the troops and first responders, the humanitarian efforts that we do. My new book is on that page, and my podcast. I have a podcast too called The Resilient Show. Lots of great guests on there, and we have a new show out every week. So.
Well, Chad, thank you so much for joining us. I love this convo. You are a true American hero, but not just a hero. You're an American badass. So thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to keeping in touch, brother.
Thank you, man. God bless.